continue with what I've been kind of working on. A few weeks back, God began to speak to me about, first of all, the culture of honor. So I want to do a little bit more with that. Come a little bit closer here. We leave this for dancing rooms, just so you know. I want to continue talking about the culture of honor because, so we started out, every place has a culture, and heaven is a place. And the culture, a big part of the culture of heaven is honor. And we, as ambassadors of heaven and citizens of heaven, we're bringing that culture to earth. As we learn it ourselves, we're being revolutionized and transformed, and we're bringing that culture to our lives and to earth. And last week, spent some time really just beginning to talk about relationships, bringing honor into really where the rubber meets the road, into relationships, and the most important relationships last week: marriage, children, and then other grandchildren and friends, and all those things. So, if I do want to say, if you missed last week, you're here today, but you missed last week, please get the CD. And I don't say that very often, but today's message is really a follow-up of last week, and it just makes so much more sense and has so much more impact if you get last week's CD. So if you missed it, please do that. I'll give you a brief recap before we kind of jump into it. But I just want to say also that God's really impressing on me for a little season here to talk about relationships. To really work on relationship skills, because do Christians need these? Yes. Yes, absolutely. And I'm learning and growing myself. I've been, God's just been leading me to press more into learning about things myself. So usually, if I'm learning about something, I'll try to go to the best. One of the best sources I know, a guy named Danny Silk, who's a pastor and Bible teacher in California, Bethel Church, who has written numerous books on relationships. Danny Silk. So if you're really wanting to get more into that, check him out. And I'm reading stuff there. I'm not an expert, but I know a lot about relationships. I'm pretty good at it, but I'm being stretched and I'm growing now too. So some of what I'm sharing with you, I'm not expert in yet, but I'm learning and growing too. How's that? All right. So yeah, just a review of last week. Started off talking about really, especially the most important relationships: marriage, children, and then any other relationships. We want to start off by choosing the culture of honor, right? Choosing the way of honor. And one of the big points I want you to remember out of this whole little series is that the word honor is really synonymous with the word value. If you look it up, even in the Bible, Greek or Hebrew, it's equally translated as value. So when you honor somebody, you're purposely setting value on them, right? You're purposely saying, this is what you're worth to me, and I want you to know that, right? Here's the full value that I set on you, and I want to communicate that to you, right? And really, value comes originally from God, because we're made in the image of God. God don't make no junk, right? So if you're made in God's image, you have value already. That alone gives us the culture of honor. Everybody's made in God's image. But the important people in your life, right, then you really want to purposely assign value to them and let them know, communicate that value to them. Don't assume. Don't take people for granted, especially the important people in your life, right? And then the other thing we talked about last week, really spent some time on also, is there was a verse in John 15 where Jesus said to his disciples, you did not choose me, but I chose you, right? And that verse is really, really powerful, and it's actually an expression of the culture of heaven, the culture of honor. Jesus said, I chose you. He said that to his disciples. I chose you. You're chosen. Isn't it good to be chosen? Doesn't that mean you have some value, right? He didn't say you're the best I could get. He didn't say I'm stuck with you. He said, I chose you. All of you imperfect, but I chose you, and I'm giving myself to you and investing in you, and I believe in you, right? And implied in I chose you is I still choose you. Okay? I chose you then, I still choose you now. And so one of the things that we do, as Christians learning to be good at relationships is express to the people in our lives. I chose you and I choose you. Right? I'm not stuck with you. I choose you again today. I choose you still today. Okay? And express that again. Learn to express that. Then the other thing we talked about last week is something called the rejection cycle. And this is really, really one of the big reasons, too. I want you to get that CD if you missed it. Spend some time on this. And it's something that I've seen in pastoral work, is people come, marriage issues, parent-child issues, any relationship issues. And oftentimes people will use marriage as an example. By the time people come for help, they're in what I call a rejection cycle. Which means somewhere way back, right, It might have been years ago. It might have been the day after the honeymoon. I don't know. It could have been that, somebody hurt the other one's feelings in some way. Being insensitive, being selfish, being just not even knowing, not even intentionally maybe, hurt the other one's feelings. And the human tendency is, right, to say, you hurt my feelings. I'm going to get out a little teaspoon, an eye for an eye, and I'm going to give you a taste of it back to teach you a lesson. Teach you what it felt like. Don't we do that? We don't say it out loud, but we do it, right? And we just give a little bit back. And then the other person goes, whoa, you just threw some rejection at me. I don't even know why. Right? And then I'll give you some of that back. And people start giving each other little offense, little insults, little rejections, little teaching each other lessons, right? And pretty soon, people who just got done promising before God to love each other with all their heart are now dishing out rejection and hurt back at each other with shovels. Right? To the point where years later, you're distanced from each other, you're protecting your hearts from each other, you've got walls up, your whole goal is to protect yourself from this terrorist that you married, right? Who is thinking exactly the same thing about you, right? Right? And you may not even remember how or when it even started, right? And so, rejection cycle, powerful, powerful stuff. And if you recognize that you're in a rejection cycle with any person, could be parent-child, could be, marriage, could be friends, anyway, one of the things to do, there's several ways you can fix it. It's hard, but it's fixable. And one of the first ways is to admit it, of course, and say, we're in a rejection cycle. I go back to the beginning. I value you, and I choose you. I chose you, and I still choose you, and I value you, and I want you to know that we're in a rejection cycle, and maybe we don't remember where it started, but let's fix it. And one of the things you do for starters is I'm going to start on my side and say, I am so sorry that I've hurt you, that I've been dishing out rejection to you and hurt to you and whatever else I've been doing. I've been treating you wrong, treating you without the value you have to me. I've been hurting you, being, cruel, whatever. I am so sorry. I acknowledge it. I confess it. Please forgive me. I want to change it. I want to restore it. When you do something like that, and that's very, very hard to get out of your mouth, by the way, isn't it? If you're in that place. It's very, very hard. Because if you're the first one leading the way on this, you're taking a big risk. Right? You are. You're taking a big risk. And I can't promise you it'll always pay off, but usually it will. Usually it will. And when you do that, and then, the other person may want to do that, either then or as soon as they actually believe that you're serious. And then you also forgive the past. I forgive all the hurts of the past. I forgive everything up to this point, right? And if you can come to a place of agreement on that, communicate, you have just cut the root off of the rejection cycle. And then you go back to, we talked about it last week, number 4 would be the rededicate yourself to the goal of connecting hearts. Right? Connecting hearts. And that's huge principle, is actually saying, now I want to purposely, intentionally connect our hearts back together and let you know that I love you. And there's, we talked about last week, several ways to do that, because there's different ways to express love to people. If you're talking about a husband and wife, right, it says in Ephesians 5 in the Bible, what was it? Husbands, love your wives, wives, respect your husbands. And the point there was, what do wives, women, need? How did God wire them, and what do they need in a relationship? To feel loved, appreciated, valued, cherished. Okay? Need it. If you don't give them that, you're cutting off their oxygen and you're starting a fight or flight response. Right? Either I fight back or I get away from you. And men are hardwired by God to need respect. And so if you're cutting off his flow of respect and treating him with disrespect, you're cutting off the oxygen. You got the same thing going on. You're going to have a fight or flight situation on your hands. Men will either completely withdraw from you and you have no idea why this man is completely distant from me now, right? Or he will get aggressive and angry. And you don't want that. Most men won't do that because they don't want to be aggressive towards a woman. So most men, actually, when they feel disrespected, they will just withdraw to protect you, but to protect themselves. And so when you have a rejection cycle, right, and you say, I've been hurting you, you've been hurting me, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, let's connect. One of the first things you do in a marriage is start to give love, affection, and and value, and to give respect. Begin to give those things, and you can reverse this whole thing. We also talked about children. What do children need? Right? There's seven needs that children have. We talk about that pretty often. It's on the CD. And there's also, for little children, there's also love and discipline. Right? Children desperately need and interpret as love and discipline, affection and discipline. And then we also talked about 5 love languages. This is just last week review. 5 love languages. People have different ways of understanding love and expressing love. And when you begin to understand what the person's love language is, then you can actually begin that process of connection. All on last week's CD. Please get it if you missed it. So, but I want to continue on and build from that point right now, go on. So there's again, I believe Christians should be relationship experts. I really do. I think Christians should not be the worst people in the world at relationships. They should be the best people. Right? Because, who's the expert of relationships? God, right? And the whole key in the Bible is 1 John 4:19. We love him because he first loved us. If you get that principle alone, and that gets into your heart and, becomes part of you, you've got a key that the rest of the world doesn't have. And right there, and you can build on that. And the Bible is about relationships. It really is. And we should be experts. And I just feel, again, that God is saying to me to spend some time teaching on relationship issues. Normally, you know what I like to teach about mostly? Jesus, the cross, the resurrection, the victory, seated at the right hand, all that means for you and how you walk in that. And that's what I love to talk about all the time. And it's when you talk about that, it's very clear cut and it's very straightforward, right? What Jesus did, why he did it, and what it does for you. And it's awesome and faith building. What I don't like to talk about a lot usually is relationship issues, because it's very messy. It's very messy. And every principle that I give you has an exception. Literally anything that I can say, this is how this works in relationships. Somebody could go, well, what about this? Well, it's an exception. What about that? That's an exception too. I'm sorry. It's very, very messy, isn't it? This is messy stuff. It really is. So with that disclaimer, I'll give some general principles about relationship, but it can be messy, huh? There's exceptions to stuff. But in any relationship, mentioned it last week, there's really one of 2 goals going on at this point in your relationship, whatever that is. You're either trying to get closer or you're trying to get farther apart. Really. And usually in starting a relationship, you're always trying to get closer, aren't you? That's always the beginning goal. I like you, you like me, let's get closer. All right? If this is a healthy thing at all. And but at some point in there, if the rejection cycle comes in, I hurt you, you hurt me. Now, and we start to dish it back, right? And once rejection starts flying back and forth, and hurt starts flying back and forth, then your goal changes. The goal is not to get closer anymore. The goal is to now protect yourself and probably to get farther apart. Keep a safe distance or something like that, right? And so you're either getting closer or you're getting farther. There's no maintaining. It's the same as the Christian life. You're either growing spiritually or you're losing ground. There's no maintaining, right? And so it's the same way with relationships. Either you're getting closer on purpose or you're getting farther. So I want to, assuming last week is in place, you've got relationships that you really want to work on and that are valuable to you, and you're willing to work on them. Let's talk about what to do. The real goal is heart-to-heart connection. Okay? Heart-to-heart connection. What does that look like? What does that mean? In order to kind of define that, first of all, I want to talk about some false or artificial connections, artificial ideas about connection. So I have a list there. It's called false connection, I think. There we go. I've got 7 of them here, and I want to just kind of briefly run through and describe false connection, because what happens is sometimes we think we're connecting with somebody, but we're really not. It's not really genuine, true, or healthy. We have artificial kinds of relationships that we get into. And so let's talk about a few of them. And this is not a complete list by any means. You can come up with a whole lot more stuff. But one is, false connection is I provide for you. And that really came several, like really a generation ago. There was a whole number of decades there where some of you know, where the whole idea of being, especially a father or a husband, was simply, I put a roof over your head, I put food on the table. That's how I say I love you, period, right? And after that, don't talk to me, just, and there was a whole lot of people that were like that. And there's still some of that today. Now, what's on the positive side, men are providers, by nature. I know a lot of times today, we both have to work and all kinds of stuff like that, but men by nature are providers. And that is one way that men genuinely say, I love you. It's true. However, it can't be the only way because it's not really enough. You may genuinely love someone, but, by providing for them, but that doesn't actually connect with their heart. It doesn't. Oh, darn. Providing for somebody there's no risk. And there's no real reward. And there's no real vulnerability and openness. Heart-to-heart connection really means you open your heart to somebody, and that's scary and risky. Right? You open your heart to somebody and you actually get to know them, and what I'm thinking, what you're thinking, what I feel, what you feel, and what's important to us, and and all that kind of stuff. And men in general aren't great at that stuff. but we can learn, and it is important and it is valuable. So just providing is alone is false connection. We want to go past that. We want to go farther than that. Number two, another kind of false connection is believing that if you agree with somebody, you're connected. One of the examples I can use in this, it might help you, is actually in the church world, in the Christian world, we have denominations, don't we? And denominations are usually organized around doctrine. In this denomination, this is what we believe, A, B, C, and D. And if you don't believe A or B or C or D, well, you're out. Right? And if you believe A, B, and C, but we're not sure about D, you have to start a new denomination. Right? You have to, relationships are based on doctrinal agreement, right? And right on down the line, rather than on the fact that we're relating to each other around Jesus, right? I mean, there are some absolute foundational things that we need. There are. But basically, our relationship is around Jesus. And is it okay if we disagree on when the rapture is? Yes. So what? We can have relationship around that. And in relationships, a lot of time, even one-on-one relationship, a lot of people, if you're insecure, you feel like if somebody disagrees with you, it's a personal rejection. It's not. It's not. Can you have a great relationship with somebody and disagree about something? Yeah, you can. You absolutely can. If somebody doesn't agree with you, does it mean you have to end the relationship, or that they're personally rejecting you? No, not really, huh? Here's the real question, though. Here's the real question where the rubber meets the road for most Christians. Is it more important to you to be right or to be connected? That's where it really hits the road for most Christians, right? Because for a lot of us, it's really important to be right. I have to be right. And it's okay if you're wrong, but I have to be right. And that's more important to me than our connection. And so that's something we have to surrender and put connection first, because what's the real goal we're talking about? Heart-to-heart connection. And what I'm talking about is in your marriage, with your kids, grandkids, friends, family, coworker, whoever it is, there's different levels of connection, isn't there? Different priorities of relationship. Some people deserve more of your time. That we get that. But basically the goal is always, at some level, heart-to-heart connection. Right? And so our enemy is counterfeit connections and false connections. Okay? And there's some things that cause us to stumble. And one thing that I've seen in Christians for many years is it's more important to a lot of people to be right than it is to be connected. They'll sacrifice a relationship like that, right, over being right. Number 3 there was you obey me. This is, some of these things actually only work in vertical relationships, meaning your parent-child, employer-employee, where there's actually a flow of authority there. Some of these things don't work in horizontal peer relationships, because if we're friends, we don't have to obey each other, right? But if you're a parent-child or employer-employee, something like that, then there's a different dynamic here. And so a lot of times parents think the whole goal with my child is you obey me. And is that a goal? Yes, absolutely. Is it the whole goal? No. Is it even the first goal? No. And this is huge. This one is big, because lots of times with parent and child, what really is the first thing you're called to do with that child is establish a heart-to-heart connection. Okay? Heart-to-heart connection. If you don't have it, you got nothing. If they obey you out of fear, you still got nothing. You got nothing. Until you have a heart-to-heart connection, you don't have anything. Heart-to-heart connection is the first goal. And then, is obedience important, raising children? Yes, absolutely, absolutely. However, as they grow up, then they become adults, and then that dynamic leaves the relationship, and now you have two, right, grown people that might become friends. And the dynamic changes, doesn't it? Okay, but if you require obedience without connection, what you're doing is making regular withdrawals with no deposit. And the relationship is in the red all the time. And usually as a parent, if you make lots of withdrawals and no deposits, when the child turns 18, he or she is gone, baby, gone. Out the door, can't get out fast enough. Thanks for everything, goodbye. If you require obedience without connection, essentially it's no different than a dictator and a slave. Right. What's the difference? Really? So, who modeled this for us? How about God? Okay. Does God just demand blind obedience of you, or does God actually want first to connect with your heart? Absolutely, God, first of all, we love Him because He first loved us. God Himself personally wants to connect with your heart. Then, of course, is obedience an issue as a Christian? Yes, it is. Absolutely, God's our Father. But what's first? Connection. How do we know that? The fact that God repeatedly, and continually forgives our mistakes and our disobedience and our failures in order to maintain relationship. God continually, repeatedly forgives disobedience, right, in order to preserve relationship, right? As we learn obedience, as we learn, right, He continually forgives and loves us because heart connection is first. And if you learn that as a parent with your child, no matter what it costs you, what it takes, even if it's been damaged or whatever, go after heart-to-heart connection with your kids. Go after it. I don't care if they're 3 years old or 30 years old. Go after it, right? Go after it. Super important. Even as an employer-employee, does that work? Yes, because you can have an employer-employee relationship just based on I pay you, you do what I say, you don't do what I say, I fire you, period. Okay, well, you can do that. Or you can be even smarter and actually make heart-to-heart connections with people at an appropriate level, right? And then if you're working for somebody that actually makes a connection with your heart, does that make a difference in how you work for them? Yes, absolutely it does. And if you're an employer and you actually, right, have the wisdom of a leader and make a connection with their heart, does that make a difference in how your business operates? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, it works on many levels. Another one is number 4, and this gets kind of interesting. Number 4 is false relationship, artificial relationship, is you let me control you. And many relationships are built on control and one person controls and one is the controlee. Many relationships work that way. And so some people, they're controllers, and usually it's based originally in fear and insecurity. I'm afraid you'll reject me. I'm afraid I'll lose you. I'm afraid you won't really love me. I'm afraid you'll look at somebody else. I'm afraid for whatever, so I control you. And if you really love me, you'll let me control you. So I feel safe. Right? Or with children, I love you, I really love you, but I think you're an idiot, and I know you're going to make the wrong decisions. So for your own benefit, let me control you. Let me control all of your decisions until you're 40 years old. No, then it doesn't end then either, right? And just let me control you. If you really love me, you'll let me control you. Is that healthy? No, it's really not. But usually controllers are usually, there's always exceptions, but controllers are usually not really evil. They're afraid. Usually. So, sometimes they're evil. Or, now number 5 is, I let you control me. And some people get in this, it's a false connection again. These are not healthy connections, they're not real, they're not genuine, but Christians find themselves in these places, in these relationships. I let you control me. Why do I do that? Because I'm afraid to make decisions. I'm afraid of choices. I'm afraid of success. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of freedom. I'm afraid of consequences. I'm just afraid. So you control me. Right. It's just safer. It's just better that way. I surrender. I don't want any responsibility. And you're such a controlling person anyway, I really have no choice. Conveniently. Some people really prefer to be a victim. They really do. It works. And then there's another aspect too that I let you control me. And this one is also fear of rejection, which is if I have any personal desire or will of my own, it might conflict with yours, and then you might reject me. Right? So where do you want to go to dinner? I don't care, whatever you want. What do you want to do this weekend? I don't care, whatever you want. What do you want to do with the rest of your life? I have no agenda whatsoever. I have no opinion of my own. I'm yours. Please don't reject me. These are all false connections because in real relationships you have two powerful people. And by powerful, I don't mean leap over tall buildings, like super. What I mean by powerful is you have two people who actually know their own heart, their own will, their own desires, and love themselves, value themselves, love you and value you, and have opinions and have choices and decisions and can actually, right, there you go. All right, that's what we're talking about. Number 6, also a false connection, I feel needed with you. This is always somebody who is insecure within themselves, and they need to feel needed. It's how they feel better. And so they find somebody who needs to feel helpless, and they make an agreement. You're the helpless one, I'm the rescuer, it works for me. Really what we're saying is, I'm very insecure, I need to use you. And when you're the person who needs to be needed, it's a huge threat to you if the other person starts to gain independence. If they start to make their own decisions, it's very threatening, and you fight back. You need me, you need me, you need me. Well, no, I actually want to become my own person now and make my own decisions, but we can still be friends. Oh no, that won't work. No. I need to be needed. You know that many pastors go into ministry because of that, needing to feel needed. Not me, not me, but so, Six actually has A, B, and C here. I need to feel needed, that's A. B on this one, sometimes connection means I solve your problems. I just solve, if I can't solve your problems, maybe you won't need me anymore, maybe you'll reject me. So our relationship is based on me fixing you and solving every problem you have, and meeting every need you have. Or maybe it means problems cause me anxiety, so I have to remove the source of anxiety. Got to fix everything. Inherent in this one, in number 6 too, the C part, is relationships are unhealthy when they're mostly one-way streets. If one person does all the giving and one person does all the receiving, the relationship is doomed. Right on your calendar, it's going to end. Might be a week, a month, a year, 10 years, it's going to end. It's just doomed. There's a few exceptions to that, but for the most part, one-way streets are doomed. They just are. So if you find yourself either the person who's always giving, it's unhealthy, you got to fix it. Or if you're the person who's always needing from everybody, always pulling and drawing and never giving, get healed, get fixed. It's unhealthy. And it always breaks down and falls apart. It just does. Because really that's almost like a host and parasite relationship. If you think about it, I mean, can I be that blunt about it? You suck one dry, and they run away from you, then you go to the next one. But if you need to be needed, you're always attaching to a new person that needs you. You get the idea. It's very dysfunctional stuff, isn't it? All right. And then number 7, there's a lot of overlap here. Number 7 is we use each other. And basically, it's kind of all of the above here is I need to control you, and you're okay with being controlled, so we have an agreement. Don't mess up the party. Or I need to be needed, and you need to be helpless. You need to be rescued all the time, and that works for me, so don't mess up the party. Don't grow up, don't become independent, don't come up with your own choices or your own will, because that'll mess everything up. Right? So you can see that these are dysfunctional kinds of relationships. So do Christians do this stuff? Yes, yes. Absolutely. Are they evil because they do this stuff? No, they're usually just blind to what they're doing. They're usually just stuck, and they're blind to it. So one of the reasons for using these kinds of lists, even though I'm not reading you a scripture verse right now, these kinds of lists actually help you to diagnose and go, oh, I think I do that, So waking up, is half the battle on some of these things. Like then you realize, okay, I need to get healthy, right? I need to get healthy, and that's a good thing. What do real connections look like? What do healthy, true connections look like? I have another list here, and I have a few verses, scripture verses with it. So, true connection. Do we have it? There we go. Again, not an exhaustive list, just some ideas to start with, but good stuff. True connection is we listen. And I mean we again, because we're talking two-way street, right? If one person does all the talking and the other person does all the listening, it's not a good relationship. It's just not going to work. We listen to each other. And listening is, boy, it's a great skill, isn't it? But listening is showing value, right? Listening is not just hearing while you're reading the paper or watching TV. Listening is eye to eye. You tell me what you're thinking, feeling, needing. I listen, I ask questions, I ask for more, I restate back, this is what I think you're saying, is that right? Right? This listening is active and involved and engaged, and I want to know what you're saying, feeling, and thinking. Okay? And who's usually not really good at that by nature is men. Well, it's true. Can we get better at it? Yeah, and it's worth doing. Men are better at some things, women are better at some things. Okay? And God made us that way on purpose, because when we come together, right, we have to make compromises for love. We have to grow in areas that we're weak in for the sake of love. God did that on purpose. He's pretty smart. Right? And so listening, Proverbs 18, verse 13. I gave a few verses here about each one of these points. Proverbs 18:13, really cool. He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him. Yeah. What this one means, you ever talking to somebody, you're trying to explain what your problem is, and they have the answer right away, and they don't even listen to you. They just jump right in the middle, and I have the answer. This is what you do. This is how you fix it. Right? And you're thinking, I really didn't want that. What I really wanted was for you to listen to me. Right? No, but I have the answer. I already know. Okay, well that's great. So you just want to give me the answer, and what you're actually doing is stomping on the connection. Got to get that one. If you give somebody the answer or the solution, you don't want to listen to them. Really, you're stomping on the connection. Yeah. And a lot of times, and ladies know this one, right? I learned this. When you're telling a problem, do you always want him to solve the problem, or do you want him to listen? Just listen. Just listen. Listen. Maybe we'll work on the solution next, maybe. But right now, just listen. and that's connection. And we both need this, men and women. We both need this. All right, go ahead. Number 2 is understand again. And Proverbs 18:2 says, a fool has no delight in understanding, but in expressing his own heart. So if your goal is, or you're married to somebody, you're in a relationship with somebody, and they're trying to talk to you, and you really don't want to understand what they have to say, right? And what you're really saying is, can I interrupt you in the middle of your sentence talking about you, and can we make it about me? Because here's what I think, right? Do you mind if I interrupt you halfway through your sentence and just make it about me again? Because I really want to talk about what I think. I don't really care what you think. Again, the Bible calls this a fool. Actually, a fool. And it says if you're wise, you actually want to gain understanding from God and from another person when you're talking to another person. I want to hear, I want to listen, and I want to understand what you're thinking, feeling, saying. Just want to understand. Do you have to agree? Nope. Do you, might you think you have the solution, and maybe you even do have the solution or the right advice, but should you just spit it out? Not necessarily. Not necessarily. What's the real goal? Connection. Connection is the real goal. Not necessarily the solution, but the connection. This is one, if you get this, it's a huge, huge key. Huge, big, big, big key. The goal is connection before its solution. So we'll listen to somebody, ask questions, hear them. How about when your kids are talking to you, especially teenagers and stuff like that, right? Don't you just want to tell them what's right and wrong, what to do and not to do, and what to think and not to think, and just tell them and just boom, right? Yeah. And you could do that, and you might be right about most of it. However, you're stomping on the connection. Right. And if they're telling you something that you're going, oh, I'm biting my tongue is bleeding. Oh. But what's really important is listen to them and hear their heart, even if you are biting your tongue and your tongue is bleeding. Listen to them and understand where they're coming from. Connection is the real goal. Because if you have connection first, everything else tends to work. Right? And then go back to the list, if you would, for a second. The true connection. What's after listening and understanding is appreciate. Does it mean you have to agree? Not necessarily. Do you have to approve? Not necessarily. You have to appreciate and value them and what they're thinking. Yes. Yes. Is this Bible stuff? Yeah, it is. It really is. I want you to be relationship experts. Right? I'm learning too. I'm growing. Just appreciate. Later on, we can work on influence. Number 5 is coming up. That's challenge, right? Can you challenge? Can you influence? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. But what's first? Listen, understand, and appreciate. Huge skill. If you get that, you're light years ahead of most people. What else do I have for 3? Proverbs 18:24. A man who has friends must first be friendly, and there's a friend who sticks closer than a brother. So what that proverb is really saying is a friend sticks closer than a brother means you can be blood related to somebody, right? And that's a lifetime bond. It doesn't mean you're actually heart-to-heart connected, does it? You can be blood related to somebody or married to somebody and not be heart-to-heart connected to them. Heart-to-heart connection is something you do on purpose. Amen. On purpose. And you both need to participate at some level, right? And that's why a friend is somebody who there's no other connection. There's not blood. There's not paper. There's not anything else. A friend is somebody you two people look at each other and say, "I'd like to connect with you somehow." Wow, and that's where pure, right, heart-to-heart connection comes in, and so. You want to do that with anybody in your life. Not assume that because you have a marriage license or because you're blood related or because of anything else, you want to actually go for a heart-to-heart connection. The real thing. The real thing. Go back to the list. Number 4 on the list is in true connections we support each other. And by support, I do not mean bail out. Because that's a false relationship. That's a false connection. When somebody always makes wrong decisions and you always bail them out, it's a false relationship. it's destructive and it will end. It doesn't work. So support doesn't mean I bail you out every time you fall down, every time you make the same wrong decision again and again and again. Actually, when we honor each other, we honor each other's decisions and the consequences that come with those decisions. You made this decision, here's what happens. I'm sorry, I love you, but here's the consequences. Okay? I either can't or won't fix this one for you. Time to grow up. Time to become a powerful person. A person who makes choices, decisions, understands consequences, takes responsibility, and appreciates freedom. Right? Time to grow up. And that's true friendship, by the way. It is. We don't maintain dysfunctional connections as Christians once we see that we're doing that. But we do build heart-to-heart connection. So look at Galatians 6:2 and 6:5. This one's really interesting. Galatians 6:2 says, bear one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. Law of Christ, he said what? Love one another as I loved you. Okay? So the Bible says bear one another's burdens out of love. Galatians 6:5 says, but each one will bear his own load. If you contrast those two verses, one says bear each other's burdens, one says each will bear his own load. And the first, couple of times I read those, and they're only a few, verses apart, I went, that sounds kind of contradictory to me. Bear each other's burdens, you have to bear your own load. Until really the Lord showed me what this means, and there's no contradiction whatsoever. Each person in life has their own load, which is what? Your choices, your decisions. You're responsible for your life, your success, your failure, your own freedom to become a powerful person, and nobody can do that for you. Don't surrender it to anybody else. Don't control anybody. Don't be controlled. You make your choices, right? And everybody has to do that for themselves. However, verse 2 said, bear each other's burdens. And what that means is that sometimes in life, when we're in communities and families, something happens to somebody through really, oftentimes no fault of their own, where suddenly they have an extra burden on their life and they can't bear it alone. They befell some tragedy, health, financial, relationship. Some tragedy came in somebody that you're related to or in community with, and they just need help. Do we help each other? Yes. Yes, we do. That's called bear one another's burdens in the love of Christ. But you have to bear your own load. You still have to make your own choices, be responsible for your own life. Amen. So we support, back to the list in number 4, in healthy relationships, healthy heart-to-heart connections, we support each other. We do. But each one is responsible for their own life. Okay? Number 5 is good. Challenge. We challenge. So in a healthy relationship, in a real connection, do you challenge each other? Yes! Yeah. Can you say to someone, I really love you, but this thing that you do, say, attitude, whatever it is kind of damaging to our relationship here, or whatever, Can you say that? Yes, absolutely. This thing that you're doing is self-destructive. You're really messing yourself up. Can you say that? Yes. If you love somebody, do say it. Do say it, right? Do say it. But what don't we do? We don't control each other. We don't carry each other's load. We don't, right? We don't control each other, but we do confront. And aren't we as Christians, aren't we actually called to influence people? Yeah. Absolutely, yes. Jesus said, go into the world, preach the gospel, meaning influence people, right? Build influence. How do you do that? Through control, manipulation, guilt, fear, religion? No, through connection. Genuine connection. And then bring influence out of love. Right? How do you bring influence? How do you bring challenge? Ephesians 4, I think, is the verse there. Ephesians 4:15 says, speaking the truth in love. How do you influence people? Speak the truth in love. How do you challenge people in relationship? Speak the truth in love. Yeah, tell the truth with love. The goal is not to get farther apart. The goal is to get closer. Okay? The goal is to make heart-to-heart connection. But if I'm doing something that's self-destructive and I'm somehow blind to it, do I want you to tell me? Yeah, if you love me, tell me. What I do with that is up to me, I guess, but tell me, tell me. And Christians, how many of you just love confrontation? You love to tell people unpleasant things. Yeah, nobody, yeah, there's a couple back there. Yeah. Put us in charge of that one. Okay. No, most Christians go, oh God, I hate that. I hate confrontation. I hate telling somebody something that's, confrontational or unpleasant, or I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But it's healthy. It's part of healthy relationships. It's part of love. It really is. But the goal is to get closer, not to get farther. Number 6 is freedom. Go back to the list for a second. We're closing in here. We have freedom. In true relationships, there's freedom. I don't control you. You don't control me. Right? I know what I want, believe in, love. You know what you want, believe in, love. We come together by choice, by purpose, by design. Right? And we have freedom. Now, look at Galatians 5:1 and 5:13. It's another one of those little deals where it looks like it might contradict, but it doesn't. We're within 5 minutes here, so if you got a roast in the oven or whatever, we're almost there. About 5 minutes. Okay, look at it. Galatians 5:1 says, "Stand fast, therefore, in the liberty by which Christ has made us free." Liberty, free. Jesus made you free, right? "And do not be entangled again with the yoke of bondage." We're called to freedom. He gave us freedom, and freedom is for grown-ups, right? Freedom is for Christians. Freedom is for sons and daughters of God. He made us free. All right. Well, some people misinterpret freedom. Freedom means I have no commitments. I don't listen to anybody. I'm not submitted to anybody. Nobody tells me nothing. Nobody teaches me nothing. I don't belong to a church. I float from place to place. I don't commit to any relationships. I float from place to place. What does that really mean? It means you're afraid of getting hurt, afraid of life, afraid of commitment, afraid of relationship, afraid of any accountability, afraid somebody will actually look into your heart and see something they don't like, whatever, And will that happen? Okay. People, you get into high commitment relationships, somebody will see into your heart and see something needs to be fixed. Is that okay? Yeah. But go ahead. And then Galatians 5:13 though tells us the solution kind of, "For you, brethren, have been called to liberty, only do not use liberty or freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love serve one another." We're called to freedom from bondage, from darkness, from evil, from all kinds of things. But we're called to freedom with a purpose. We're called to freedom with high commitment relationships. We, as Christians, believe in high commitment relationships. High commitment marriages, high commitment parent-child relationship, high commitment to grandchildren, high commitment to community, to church, to friends, right? We believe in high commitment relationships. Is that freedom? Yeah. Because we're in it by choice. Amen? We're in it by choice. And we believe in high responsibility, freedom with high responsibility. And we believe in freedom, but with high, the way I put this in my notes, bilateral care for us. What that means, bilateral means two-sided, right? Whenever there's a relationship, there's an us. There's a me and you, whether it's marriage, parent, child, friend, whatever it is, there's an us. And in a relationship, I care for us and you care for us. And when we have both care for us on purpose, you have amazing relationships. Amen. Amazing relationships. And I can guarantee you, if you use these principles, so there's still one more, but if you use these principles, in general, most of your relationships will get better. They just will. And some of your relationships will become amazing. Truly amazing and wonderful. Will it absolutely work with everybody? No. Some people are very broken, very damaged, very selfish, very whatever they are, and it's just not going to work with them. I'm sorry, it just won't. Some people, it won't. But most people, and no matter how damaged the relationship has been, most people, these principles will establish connection, reestablish connection, and make relationships better and even amazing. Amen. So I said there's so many exceptions to these things, right? There's always, yeah. But the last one, go back to the list here, is number 7, which is mutual benefit. True connection is mutual benefit. As I said a minute ago, one-way street relationships are doomed to failure. They just are. They're parasitic, or they're unhealthy, or they're whatever they are. But mutual benefit, this means in any us relationship, it's got to genuinely be good for me, and it's got to be genuinely good for you. Amen. Yeah. And if it's not healthy, right? And if something's off, you can say so. That's called challenge. That's called, right? Absolutely. It's got to be mutual benefit. And that's what Jesus said. We look at John 14:20. We'll close it with this. And we used a similar verse for communion today. John 14:20. There we go. In that day, Jesus said, "You will know that I am in my Father, you are in me, and I am in you." Right? And what that means again is mutual interdependence. We need Jesus. We get that. We understand that. But He needs us. Because He's actually come into covenant with us, made covenant with us, and made us His body, and come to live in us and through us. And He is literally dependent on us to allow Him to live in us and live through us, and cooperate with that, and participate with that. Right? Literally, there's an interdependent relationship you have with Jesus now, and He modeled that, and He made Himself vulnerable. And part of true relationships is they're risky and they're messy, and you make yourself vulnerable. You open your heart and you take risks. And oftentimes they pay off, and sometimes they don't. And you do it anyway. And you do it again. And again, when you open your heart and make real connection, even with the risky, messy, vulnerable thing it is, right? Most of your relationships will get better. And some of them will get amazing. Hallelujah. All right. Should we pray? Okay. Can we stand together and... So let's just take a few moments, allow the Holy Spirit to come and minister to you. Just take a couple minutes. This is where we don't just read the menu and go home. Now we order something and we eat. So, Holy Spirit, please come and begin to minister to each person something from the message that they really needed to hear. Begin to speak to their hearts, to each one of us, God. Something that we needed to hear from this. Do we need to internalize? And begin to live out, walk out. Hallelujah. So again, first of all, just ask the Lord if there's a person in your life that He would highlight to you right now that you really want to repair a damaged relationship, or improve and invest in a relationship to make it better. But I feel the Holy Spirit just really impressing on me that there's a number of people in the room right now that you're in a rejection cycle with somebody. It's been part of the history. It doesn't matter if it's been 6 months or 6 years or whatever. It just doesn't matter. But you've been in a rejection cycle with somebody, a damaged relationship. And God, the Holy Spirit is really saying, fix it and be brave. And He's saying He'll be with you. And it's scary. It's scary. Because if there's been broken trust, broken relationship, broken respect, it's scary to say, please forgive me. It's scary to say, I'm sorry I hurt you, I let you down. My choices were wrong. The way I treated you was wrong. It's super risky and it's super scary. It really is. And God says, do it anyway. Do it. I'll be with you. Do it no matter what they say back. Do it no matter how they respond to you. Do it anyway. Do it because it's right. Do it because you believe in connection. Do it because you'll open the door and begin to build the bridge, even if the other side of the bridge doesn't come flying at you right away. Believe that relationships can become good, better, even amazing. They can be repaired. They can become amazing and wonderful. But there's risk, and it's scary. And God's saying, I'll be with you, I'll be with you, I'll be with you. Each step, I'll be with you. And just again, I just felt that was for a number of people, not just one or two. I felt like that was for just a number of people in the room, different situations. But if just for everybody, again, if the Holy Spirit is highlighting to you some person in your life that He wants you to either repair or just improve a relation and really invest in it and make it amazing and make it wonderful, just receive that from the Lord. It may be more than one person that He's impressing on you. And then ask Him how. The next question is, say, Lord, show me how. And you know, when you ask the Lord these questions, there's just a kind of a flow of thoughts, usually that begin to come to you, either quickly or later on. A flow of thoughts that begin to come that show you what God is saying to you. Some of it will be from the message. Ask the Lord, God, show people what steps really you want them to take to improve a relationship or to repair a relationship. Bless people, Lord, with faith, with strength, with anointing, with grace. Make them leaders, God. Make them people of influence. Make them experts in relationships. That Christ be formed in our hearts, in our souls. In Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you guys. I love you. I love you.